So continue to be willing when we call you to be a presenter during that section, because again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If someone's doing something great, we need to share that with others. So if you haven't done so already, please complete that survey, and you can just drop it off on the table as you leave today, and we will share out the results again later. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to get started officially here, and just a reminder, you are being videotaped, so if you fall asleep, it will be recorded for history. Yes, ma'am, thank you. Also, that's a great reminder. Make sure that if you're speaking and you're speaking from your chair, the microphone will not pick you up, and the video on the TV will not pick you up. So if you need to say something, you need to go to the mic to say it, or I will bring you the handheld, okay? We have to do the official introduction, so he's gonna count. Welcome everybody to our February session of the Parent Leadership Team meeting. We are glad to have you here today. My name is Diana Hetzel, and I am Ginny Gleason's replacement and the new Parent Involvement Resource Teacher. Thank you all for coming. We're going to jump right in today and start with our first presenter, Ms. Tara Taylor, who is the principal from Pinewood Elementary. Thank you.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here this morning. There's nothing like a rainy morning in Carloop that gives you this beautiful hairdo. So if my hair is sticking up and it's going to be televised, all the better, because I have the rain to blame. I want to thank you so much for being here, because the fact that you're here means that you share our culture of parent involvement is a true piece of our success at the school level. At the elementary level, I think there's so many perceptions out there. When my child starts kindergarten, I can't wait to go in and plan class parties. But our volunteers do so much more, as you know. And I guess my biggest point, if you were to leave today, is that you'll take with you, as parent leaders, the parents in the schools that may not be involved in the PTO or may not be members of our SAC. They look to you as school experts. As administrators, we can stand up and say, we need your help. Here are some things that we really would like your input on. But there are parents out there that just feel a little timid. Maybe they feel that there's some cliques involved in your PTOs or boosters, or there's just perceptions parents may have. And I look to you to bring those parents on board and let them know we're not looking just for the parent that can write the biggest check. We are looking for the parent that cares the most about the school. And at my school in particular, I will say, last year we were involved in a process where it was part of an award process. They came and met with our parents as our stakeholders. And when we looked at that data and walked away, we saw, you know what makes Pinewood a great school? It's that our parents and our parent involvement, be it grandparent, guardians, they all truly are here for the success of all of our students. So they're not just there helping their little Johnny, I want you to be the straight A student and do very well and make mom proud. They're saying, I want to invest in this school to make the whole school community a stronger place. Some of those examples that we have at Pinewood are to help some of our social skills. And I think that's one of those things that you just assume students come with all the tools, because a lot of your children come to school with all the tools for success. My parent leaders have been terrific with coming up with ideas, and they feel free to present to me, Tara, what do you think about this? What about this as an idea? I've seen this occurring at school. So it's a shared stakeholder, and we all share that responsibility for our students. An example of those items are our flagpole. I know every school has an awards program. Once a month at Pinewood, we meet outside by the flagpole and we recognize students for a variety of things. I will tell you, there is no short, I have 450 students at my school. Sometimes I have 200 and 300 community members that come. They're not just there because their child is winning. Often my parents come because they want to see the school success of all of the students. And I think that's the image we want to get out to our parents, those that don't feel like they're involved because maybe, they work and can't get in. Be involved, be present, because it impacts all of the students. Additionally, I had parents create a committee that formed a Friday club, and we feed almost 60 students for the weekend, 215. The students come that are members of the Friday club. Those students that are not members, obviously they're selected based on students that have that need. I got calls the first Monday. My kids want to be in the Friday club, and they didn't even know what it was, but because the parents had made it such a proud thing that you're a member of this club, yet no one knew what being a member of that club meant, is that you would have food so that you could eat over the weekend. That was generated totally by parents. Has it made my students perform better? Of course. We know if students are hungry, they can't focus on their academics. However, if the parents hadn't handled it in the way they did, do you think there'd be a lot of stigma to the Friday club? People would, students would not want to be in the Friday club because they wouldn't want anyone to know. It was parents at my school that created it, so it was such a special thing to be part of this Friday club that those students not only feel better about themselves, but then the side effect is they're also taking home, the food for the weekend. Another project that helped to make our school community stronger is a clothing swap. And initially, the idea we brought, by a parent, we set it up in the cafeteria, and I say we, it was not me, you know who it was the parent leaders. They set it up, and it was, people could bring in clothing and swap out. And the beautiful thing of it is my parents that need the clothing, they said, take what you need. But a lot of it was parents that it was not an economic issue. It was, my kid's grown out of these jeans, the tags are still on them, I want to trade them, for something else that they can have for play clothes. So it worked out to be a perfect community event, yet again led by my parent leaders. And these are things that I know hit the social end of things, but they have a direct impact on the academics, because we know if students feel good about what they're wearing, they're fed, their emotional state as well, that they're going to be high performers as well. I also have a dad that comes every other Friday, and for all of you men out here, next time I want you to come to the meeting wearing your bumblebee costume, because I have a dad who dresses up as a bumblebee, and he goes to classes and rewards students on their reading progress. Now, we had to con him into wearing the costume, but I will tell you, I have students that would have never picked up a book before this that will pick up a book because they want the busy bee to come in, and he gives them a little dog tag, and they can't wait to show this dog tag. And I directly correlate that with getting some students to read that, all the tricks in the classroom weren't working for them. So these are some of the ways that parent leaders have directly impacted our success at Pinewood. And before I close, I just want to say, leave here today. I'm preaching to the choir here. You know what you do for your schools. You know how important it is. But I still feel that there is a population of parents out there that just for whatever reason are hesitant to get involved. They think it's just about planning parties and running copies and those types of things. And they need to know that you are truly stakeholders in your child's school. You have a shared responsibility in the success of the school, and the school really counts on you. And if we can get that message out to that population of parents that we're missing, I think that our schools would be even stronger. And it's, I know it's hard because you try and get people to come with you, work on this project with me. But I think that if we look at those parents out there, you see them at open house and they're kind of lingering like they're interested, but they just don't know anyone, they're new to the area. And if we can really try and reach out to those parents, I think that all of our schools will be a lot stronger. And before I leave, I'm waiting for my Diana's favorite things gift here. Since it's not coming, maybe you guys will get one before you leave today. But on a lighter note, I really cannot thank you for what you do for Brevard Public Schools. You're investing your time, your resources. I know for many of you, you probably feel like you're paid staff because you're there so many hours. And I really appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. And now our next presenter is Todd Shearer from Southwest Middle.
Good morning. I wrote some notes down because as a middle school, you have to have your list and make sure you cover all your points. I do not have a bumblebee, But I will tell you quickly, middle school, what the kids enjoy, I can't even imagine a bumblebee going into classrooms in the middle school. That would not go over well. But what the kids do enjoy is when we have Spirit Week and it's dress up and costume and all that, and the principal has to dress up as nerd. That is something the kids enjoy in middle school. There's a reason middle school is 7th and 8th grade. Only 2 years. And as you can see from the presentation today, I'm the thorn between two roses. Elementary and high school, the two ladies. Middle school is not easy. And I will tell you, the fear that I always see in 6th grade eyes, and I'm talking students and parents at open house. So Jenny asked me to talk a little bit today about, Todd, what are the parents? What are parents doing in middle school that leads to success for their students? And so I wanted to focus on the positive, because many of you know these things, but there's a gap. The gap is ever growing between the parents that are involved and those that are not in the success of our students. So some of these things I'm going to be specific about things in middle school. First, we always have a great turnout, but attending open house. We always see them. They come out for the very first open house in 7th grade, but after that initial visit, that may be the last time they ever visit the school. So attending open house. Parents in middle school reading over with their child, taking 15, 20 minutes to sit down and read over the handbook, the rules, the procedures. Talk to their student why some of these things are important. Taking that time to do that, it's essential. Because in middle school, it's that gap of bridging their 12, 13, 14-year-olds. You know, in elementary, they line up in lines. They're very careful about listening to their teachers and following directions. But in middle school, you start giving them those freedoms. And some kids can handle those freedoms very easily because their parents are involved and there's limits and all that. But then some students, when you give them a little bit of freedom, they go crazy. And that's what is hard about middle school, is trying to nurture them with their responsibilities. Monitoring Edline, I will tell you, I have seen the difference in the last 3 or 4 years with Edline in Brevard County schools. Parents now are coming in, students, they are using Edline and following through on that through middle school. But monitoring it, I tell parents when I have conferences all the time with parents in my office, and I'm sitting with the student and the parent, one time a week or even once every 2 weeks, sit for that 10, 15 minutes, go through every class, look at it. That's a great moment. That's a great moment. If there is a problem in middle school, I'm always communicating. Please, email is out there now for everyone. It's two-way communication, but always email the teacher. I want the parent to call me. Absolutely. If you've emailed or you've tried calling the teacher and you're not getting a response, absolutely I want to know about it, because I will be involved at that point. But I do appreciate the parents that are being proactive in that regard. And things aren't getting better, then we will try to facilitate that parent conference. And it's so critical in the middle school. What else is important in middle school for success that we see? Students who are reading. For some reason, they get into middle school and they stop. They stop. And I tell parents all the time, anything. Take a day and surprise your child and say, let's go to Books A Million, Barnes & Noble. Let's go. Let them pick something out, and you model and pick something out. But the kids need to be reading out, whether it's the newspaper, whether it's a magazine, something fun and interesting for them. But reading is a problem in this whole entire country right now. But middle school students who are overachieving, who are doing great, they are constantly walking around with a book. Okay? Students in the middle school. I preach this at open house, getting things out at Center Voice. I ask parents, please involve your student in one activity at least in middle school. And when I say that, as a principal, I want you to know I'm committed to having those programs for our students. And what I mean by that is drama program, TSA, Technology Student Association, Odyssey of the Mind, future problem solving. We have all of those in the middle school. We really do. But getting the kids involved in those, because sometimes it's before school or after school, but the students in middle school that are involved and focused on that, the difference in their academic success is tremendous. Is that a lot of work on parents in middle school, starting to get them? Absolutely. I don't deny that. That's the hard part. Middle school, organizational skills. I see the high school one laughing. Organizational skills. Look, elementary, it is about holding their hand and continuing to nurture and love. Absolutely. But in middle school, we have to start that process of responsibility. And I've had many conversations with parents in the front office that bring their child's homework during the day because, boy, they did that a lot in elementary school, and, we rushed it to the teacher and the student, and, anyways. In middle school, we don't interrupt classes like that. We try to teach. They missed they forgot their PE uniform at home. That's how it is. We've got to start teaching responsibility. But I have a center voice and a text going out to my parents next week because, and it goes along the lines, please stop for 15 minutes one night this weekend, sit and go through your child's book bag. And part of my comment goes, if you get a lot of, what do you mean you're going through my book bag? That's an alarm. That's an alarm. Absolutely, we're going through your book bag, and we're going to check what's in there, and you'll see how organized your child is. There may not even be paper and pencil in that book bag. So that's important skills to be looking at in middle school to help us and the teachers. Establishing a play in middle school. They want to disappear to their room and close the door in middle school. It happens. That's normal. But establishing a place and a time to study, to do your homework, getting that routine, that's important. And once the student and you negotiate that as a parent, because that's part of parenting at middle school, negotiating, okay? And that's sometimes a hard skill, especially with middle school students. But once you establish that routine, that place, and you and the child agree on it, then you got to monitor it and follow through and making sure it's happening. I guarantee you, most middle schools have a before or after school tutoring program for students. Students that take advantage of that do well. When they're having trouble, it's the first question I always say to the parent. We have before school tutoring. It's available either with the teacher or school-wide. I have a math teacher that runs that every morning, Monday through Friday. That's an important aspect to any middle school. Talk with your child every day and tell them you love them. I know that sounds so germane to this group, but let me tell you how the middle school day goes. Child comes home. How was school today, son? Fine. Got any homework tonight? Nope. That's the conversation in middle school most nights with parents and child. And I say this, that's the same speech I've given every year at open house. And parents always chuckle and everything because that's the dilemma. Taking the time and having that in-depth conversation and following up a little bit more. That's important for middle school. Keeping open communication with your child, building trust. Being fair and consistent. That's the hardest one. Set expectations. If you have a rule or a limit, we've got to follow through on them. Always, you've heard it, we always welcome parents to volunteer, chaperone. There's dances, concerts, band events. And the last thing, and I saw it up here on the screen, social media. In middle school, it's not being checked at all. And we deal constantly with issues of cell phones, of texts, of Facebook, and the problems originate out there, and they come to school, and we are using a lot of valuable time focusing on those issues to solve problems. So the help that we ask from parents all the time is monitor it, check it. That's what we all need to be preaching, because I say to parents, the electronics today is so sophisticated, it's quick, it's instant, and what an 11, 12, 13-year-old, they're not mature. They're not mature. They're not high school yet. And it is a hard gap, because to spend the time, which we do, to sit down with the child and the parent and go through, this is what came to our attention. It's serious. We have to nip this in the bud. But please, all we can do to continue to talk about social media, it's a growing epidemic for us in the educational field. So that's all I had today. I thank you for being here. I echo what Ms. Taylor said. You're the parents that I want to take all of you back to my school, because you're involved, you care, and you're taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I could stand up here for another hour and add and preach to what he's saying. Feel very passionately about that. That transition from elementary to secondary is so important, and that's one of the things that I hope that I bring to the program, is really helping parents get through that transition and knowing what to do, and earlier rather than later. But I won't stand up for an hour and talk on that. So with no further ado, our next presenter, Ms. Chris Moore from Bayside High School.
Good morning. Ginny called me about a month ago. Ginny called me about a month ago and said, Chris, you have a really unique perspective because you've been at all 3 levels. I taught at both the elementary and the middle school, and I've been an administrator at high school for quite a while, but I was also the principal of an elementary school for a couple years before I became the principal of Bayside. So I've kind of seen both the perception of parents and their involvement at school, and the perception of teachers and parents at involvement of the school. And what Ginny called and said to me, it was, Chris, our parents really want to know how to be involved in the high school, what it is that you guys want. And I will tell you, I'm here to bust some myths if I can. And I know there are probably 16 of you out there that this pertains to you now. But I want to keep this really simple so that you remember it for 5 or 6 or 7 years, because there's another 60 of you out there that this really pertains to as soon as your kids start moving on up the grade levels. So I'm just going to use the acronym HELP. The first part, the H, is a really important word, a really important question. And I want you guys to remember this question. I want you to ask this question as soon as your kids come into high school, and that's, how can I help? Because you're going to get parent phone calls, and you're going to go to some parent conferences, and you're going to go to some open houses, at least one, like Todd said. And at some point, I want you to ask the question to the teacher or the administrator you're talking to, how can I help? And they're going to give you the answer based on your student. Well, set aside time for reading, organize, help them get organized. And I want you to drill down on that again. No. How can I help you? Because the myth is, for parents, well, high school doesn't need us or want us anymore. Thank you for giving me a nod of encouragement. And the myth for the teachers, because there's a myth on both sides, is, parents don't want to be here anymore. They're tired now. So don't let them off the hook. How can I help you? Because that's when they're going to say something that gives you the opening back into high school. That's when they're going to say, well, I have this Friday morning tutorial, and are you good at algebra? Can you help me? Or, I really want to reward the kids, but I get home at 8 or 9 o'clock. Do you bake? Can you help me? So they're going to give you the opportunity, but if you just give a surface, how do I help you? They're going to give you a surface answer. Don't let them off the hook. Drill down. The E alludes to something Todd spoke about. It's encourage your students to participate, but then there's a ... after that. And that is, and then support it. in the high school, kids will find out a way to get involved in things. We have 1,000 activities. But those activities sometimes last until 10 and 11 o'clock at night. I know because I'm at most of them 2 or 3 nights a week. And there are kids that I'm sitting outside at 10:30 waiting for them to be picked up. And there are kids who say, I would do that, but I can't because fill in the blank. And there are always going to be time and financial constraints in families, and we get that. But each one of you could reach another. So be open to the idea that we're going to encourage our kids to get involved, and we're going to help them to stay involved, and other kids too. And I know that that's tap dancing around some issues, and I get that. But the more our students, and when I say our students, I'm not talking about your child and I'm talking about our children. Because we know that the number one reason kids graduate is because they're actively engaged in schools. And we know the number one reason kids stay actively engaged is because their friends are. So filter that back in your memory if your student is 5 right now. And in 10 years, I want you to bring that back up front. So the L, and this is, I think, my most important one, having been at the elementary school for several years, would you love us? Would you love us just a little? Because I got to tell you, when a high school teacher gets a note thanking them, when a high school teacher gets a candy bar during Teacher Appreciation Week, 88 teachers know about it in 2.2 seconds. So don't forget us when you get up there. I know there are 7 of us. I just saw my mom in the back. Thank you for being here. Not my mom, my Bayside's mom, yes. My mom's probably still in bed. She's retired. Remember to love us a little. Remember that during Teacher Appreciation Week, the administrators and clubs are tap dancing to try to make sure they feel appreciated. And I'll send out a center voice or a email to my parents and say, hey, if you think about it, send in a note of appreciation. You don't have to spend money on us. A note carries a lot of weight. And that can be done any time of the year, but your kid has 7 teachers now. And sometimes it's hard to want to do something for all of them. That's okay. Say to your student, what's your favorite? Think back to which one called you at some point in the year to give you the heads up that there might be an issue or to give you the good news that your child's awesome. Pick 1, pick 2, but love us a little because it goes a long way. And the P is a big one for me, and that's participate in informational meetings. And that one sounds awful boring because I have a lot of parents that participate by going to our concerts. I fill our auditorium. I have a lot of parents who participate by going to basketball and football games. But my guidance department put on 6 informational meetings about important things. And the highest and I mean important things, and they were well advertised. And the highest number of parents that went was 4 to any one meeting. And I have 1,500 students. And let me just tell you that part of that is, what's the most recent school most of us all have in common? Well, it's high school. I know that one. I know graduation standards. I know scholarships. I got this. I am telling you, from Monday to Friday in my life, things change. So please, 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 be the font of knowledge for your kids. Because even my guidance counselors have about a 1 to 400 load. So please, please, please attend our informational meetings. And that includes the one that's coming up on Bayside on February 13th. I got room for you all. And I just saw my Harbor City parent. So That's it. There's my help. Ask the question, how can I help? Encourage participation and support us. Support it. Love us a little. And participate in those meetings that aren't so fun. The ones that are just giving you information. Because you guys have got to be the font of information for your kids and to reach out to the community and give them information where misinformation abounds. So thank you again for being here, and I expect to see at least 15 of you at Bayside at some time in the near future. Bye, guys.
Thank you very much. And now we have our Jefferson Middle School parent, Miss Tanya McDuffie, who is going to present for us today. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, unlike them, they're principals and they're used to speaking in front of people. I'm not. But I will tell you that I'm a little nervous. When Jen asked me to be the JPO president, I was like every other parent. First, I was like, okay, why did Jen ask me? You know, there's millions of parents that she knows. It was overwhelming. You look at your time, how many children you have. I have 3. I have a business. I have a husband who works, you know, so I'm sitting there going, how am I going to fit this in my schedule? You know, because we all go off of schedules. And then I sat back and thought, and I said, you know what? This is a transition time of my son going in 7th grade. I went into a school that was K through 12th, one school. We had 900 students in one school. And I was like, you know what? This is a transition I've never done before. And I thought it was important because of this transition stage for me to be in my son's school, knowing what's going on, knowing the students that he was around, knowing the problems that could come up that he might not talk to me about. So I asked my son if he was okay with me doing this. To my surprise, he was excited. I was like, whoa. So I was very happy that he wanted me to be a part of this transition. Jen first asked me to come and join them. Jefferson Middle School has a transition for the 6th graders going into middle school. It's where the parents drop the kids off. We have a game night at Jefferson, and it kind of introduces the 6th graders without their parents what middle school is like. It was awesome. I got to see these students come in, and I'm sure, I really wanted to be there, so I was like, thank you, Jen, for letting me come in, because I have a hard time disconnecting. I want to know what's going on. But these kids came in so scared and hesitant, and they did a scavenger hunt through the school. And it allowed the students to be able to go through the school with this map, find classroom, find halls with their groups of friends, and it kind of broke the ice for all these students to transition from elementary school to middle school. So I was very thankful to be a part of that. And then Jen and the principal, Dr. Spinner, brought me in over the summer and said, here, let's go over the activities that you're going to be in charge of. It was 3 pages, and I was floored. I was like, oh, you know, but then when I started reading what JPO was responsible for, I was more overwhelmed with emotion because, as these principals have said, parents think it's all cookies. It's all about the dances. It's all about the J-grams, you know, the different things that you hear. You only hear the fun things that the students are involved in, but the parent organizations are so much deeper than that. At Jefferson Middle School, at the beginning of the school year, we give our teachers what we call mini grants. The mini grants help provide for the teachers what the schools no longer provide for them, things that they need to teach our children. So we offer these applications to the teachers. We give away between $8,000 to $10,000 a year and mini grants to the teachers. There's a staff of us who get together and we approve them. If there's some things that we question, we go back and ask questions, and if we don't approve it, we ask them to submit for something else because we want to help them. The Jefferson Parent Organization it's just amazing. Your school, if you don't have a parent organization or it's not running smoothly, I really suggest that you call Jefferson Middle School and ask for myself or Kathy Trimley, who started this, because it's very successful. We raise a lot of money for the students and for the students within our school that can't provide. We do things for the teachers. We don't forget the teachers. At the beginning of the school year, we provide a dinner for the teachers, telling them, here we go, good luck. And we involve the parents. As they were saying, there's so many parents you do have a very small group, the same group that does everything. But then you have parents that you don't know, though, who drop off the donations, who cook the food and drop it off. There's so many ways that parents are involved that even though you're not seeing their face, they're still doing it. I try and encourage my parents who show up to the meetings or who show up to help with the things that we put on to invite a friend to come with them, like a buddy system, like if you're going to the gym, you're more willing to do it if you could go with someone. So I encourage our parents to do that. I do have a once-a-month meeting, and as the Bayside principal said, I have like 4 people that show up out of 600, but you don't get discouraged by that because there's parents who just can't carve that time into their calendar, but they're there to help you in other ways. You just try and figure out the parents who don't show up or don't have the time because they work. You try and help them understand that there are other ways that they could help. I have so many parents that say, I can't help with the J-grams, which are candy grams that we sell. The students buy them for $1. We put them together and deliver them at the end of the day. It's a great, easy way to make money for your school, and it gets the parents involved and the kids feel special. But I say, you know what, that's okay if you can't help with the J-grams, but we have the dance and it's after hours and you could help with that or you could drop this off. So there's a lot of ways that you can encourage the parents who can't come during school hours, that they're still important and that they can help just by dropping things off. There's a lot of things that Jefferson Middle School Parent Organization does. We do have the food that we provide for the teachers at the beginning of the school year. We have the mini grants. We have a pep rally and a spirit week, which the one principal said they do love getting dressed up and seeing all the staff getting dressed up. We really encourage that. We have 3 dances we put on once a year. All of this is donations. At our open house, not open house, but on registration, we have a table set up, and we ask the parents to give a one-time donation of $35 for each family. That is the money that we use to help put on our events during the school year. Not every family could give $35, and by all means, you don't want to make a family feel like they are pressured to pay that $35 because you will have enough of the parents who are willing to give that. Where some parents can't give that $35 at registration, they may be the ones bringing the donations in. They may be the ones cooking the chili for the teachers, where they are giving in their $35. Besides the $35, we do no fundraising, 0. Activities within the school will do fundraising, but JPO does not do fundraising. We take the $35 from the families that will donate that to us, and then we do ask for donations for the dances. I send out emails. We need sodas, we need candy, we need chips, and then we sell that, and that money is also put into our organization to pay for the grants and things like that. We have 3 dances a year, and then we hold an 8th grade dance off campus. All of this is funded by JPO and the parents who have helped contribute to that. We have around 3 after-school activities. We have the coaches put together teams for either dodgeball or volleyball. We charge $1 to get in the door and then $1 for the snacks. One of our coaches has a family, a wounded vet, that for 2 years, I guess, Jen, we have taken all the money from a dodgeball tournament, and we have taken our money that we've spent and then given him the rest for the trust fund for that family, which this year we gave $1,000. Very simple. But there's a lot more things we do. Staff appreciation. We do a cookie bash every year for the teachers to show the teachers, again, that we appreciate them. We have families bring in dozens of cookies. We line them up in the cafeteria. We supply the bags for the teachers, and they go through and pick whatever cookies they want for the holidays. We have a caring closet. We have a PB&J club for the families who can't provide food for their children. We provide the peanut butter and jelly and the bread and the drinks for these families, for their children. The only thing I could suggest is that it is not to be overwhelmed if you're asked to be in a position like me, or if you're asked to do something, maybe you can't come in, maybe you can't be a JPO president, but step up somehow and encourage your parents somehow to let them know that they are a part, even if their face isn't shown, they're a part of it. I hound parents at the baseball field, at church. They see me coming, and I know they're like, they try and hide from me, but they know, they look at me and they go, gosh, she's so busy. How do you do it all? Well, I do it all because you could help me. So don't be afraid to approach the parents, because if they see the JPO president coming over and taking the time to talk to them, and involve them outside of the school, that means a lot to a parent, because like they said, they think that they're being, they're not a part of the clique or they're not important. But when you take the time outside of the school setting to approach a parent that their child comes to that school, that means a lot to them. And you know what? They probably will show up next time. They probably will help you in some way or be more willing to help, because they know that they are important, that there isn't a clique, that their child is just as important as my child and the rest of the parents who do help. Again, if you aren't sure how to get your JPO off the ground or to have more events that are very successful, please call Jefferson and ask for my phone number or to speak to Kathy Tremblay, because we could really help you make your JPO succeed, because ours is very successful. So I would just encourage you, don't be afraid to ask questions, because we'll be happy to help you get your JPO started or keep it rolling and get it very successful, because Jefferson Middle School's JPO is very successful. Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing, Tanya, and you didn't seem nervous at all. Next, I have for you Teresa Phelps and Nancy Gray, who are going to talk to you a little bit, make a curriculum connection for you, and talk about writing. First, Miss Teresa Phelps.
I titled this The New Face of Writing because it really has taken on a new face. What we once knew as writing was, especially when it comes to assessment, was FCAT writing. And February 25th marks the end of FCAT writing as we know it. The 4th, 8th, and 10th will take their assessment, and the year following we'll be moving on to a different type of writing assessment, which is to be determined by the state. We're waiting to see what that looks like. But one thing I can tell you is that for sure what we call the deconceptualized prompts that really were just about experiences, like tell about a time you were happy, tell about a favorite day of the week. We won't see those anymore. So I'm going to kind of go through a couple slides and point out the standards, because one thing we do know is that any assessment in the future is based on those standards. So these are some of the things that you'll be seeing. I wanted to start off with this quote, though, because I had a chance to meet Lucy Calkins. She is a big hero of mine, writer of many books, and she said one of the most potent ways to accelerate students' progress as learners is by equipping them with first-rate skills in writing. We really see the value of writing across the content areas every day in every area, and that it improves their skills. So we're really looking at, when we talk about these new standards, we're looking at shifts or changes. And we've kind of grouped them into 3 areas, but specifically the one that I bolded is talking about reading, writing, and speaking that's grounded in evidence from the text, which is going to be literary, like literature, and informational. So no longer will they see these prompts that just say, tell about a time you were happy, but it might show, the children will be reading a passage, and it'll say, after reading this passage, then it'll ask a question, and then it'll say, then find evidence to support your answer. So there's a lot more of that. There's no more, opinion. Well, there is opinion, but it's not just experience. So there's going to be 3 kinds of writing. We're still going to see some narrative, and it might have a passage that has an incomplete story, or a passage from a narrative, and it'll say, now finish the story. What if this had changed? How would you end the story? So children will still be writing narrative, but in a different way. Or it might say something like, given this information, Why do you think this happened? And then there is an opinion, but it's got to be not because of background knowledge, but because of something that was actually right there in that passage. So all information is pulled from passage. Or it might be, look at these two pieces of writing and analyze them. And how did the characters, where did they respond in the beginning? How did they make that change at the end? Or so it'll be, everything is kind of related to those passages to finding evidence. Well, it's incremental steps, though. Nothing just comes on, poof, and here we go. We've been working towards getting ready for Common Core. K through 2 are well involved in the new standards, and you'll see writing. I'm sure you've seen a lot more writing in all the grades, and we're encouraging that even in kindergarten, you know, they will read a book and they'll talk about print left to right. They'll talk about these books are written by people, and I mean it's a very basic thing, and then they start adding, you know, labeling pictures, and then they'll start writing sentences related to some question about a book, and they kind of tie it together. So you'll see a lot more writing, and starting in kindergarten all the way through. We know that you really need, one grade needs to stand on the shoulders of the grade prior, because it's the Common Core standards are foundational and they spiral. So they start with kindergarten and then they build up, and then they build on that one, and then they build on that one. And teachers are expected to teach, of course, whatever their grade level standards are, but realize that not everybody walks through the door as a fourth grade student with prepared to do the fourth grade skills. So they may have to spiral down, find them where they are, and work with them to get them up on grade level. And conversely, they might say, wow, they walked in with great skills, let's see where they are, and we'll keep taking them up that spiral. Everything that we'll be doing now and in the future, you'll hear a lot of people talking about standards-based lessons. That is to say that no longer will teachers just have a teacher's edition and turn the page and that's today's lesson, but you'll see a lot more planning, like here's our standards. What am I going to use? Which resource? Am I going to be looking at the district adopted reading text, or am I going to look to be pulling in some literature in order to meet that standard? And what are the activities I'm going to plan to meet that standard? So a lot more talk about standards-based lessons. So just to give you an idea, I talked about those three kinds of writing, and that little pie chart pretty much shows you that, and they're pretty much equally, divided up. So it says persuasive, but what we really do refer to that from kindergarten to 5th grade is opinion writing. And when they get to 6th grade, the verbiage changes to argument. And so you'll see, if you looked up the standards, that you'll see opinion is one of them for our K-5 kids. And then there's informational, where they're explaining. And then the last one is narrative, like personal experiences or responding to a narrative of some kind. What I did beside that to the right is I said, this is kind of an overview, a simplistic overview of a standard in writing. In kindergarten, it says, using a combination of drawing, dictating, and writing, children will name what they are writing about and supply some information about the topic. And that's with lots of, teacher support. Well, then in 1st grade, you can see where that changes up just ever so slightly. Your child will name a topic and supply facts about the topic. In bold is what changes a little bit. Your child will provide a sense of closure, which just means they'll kind of wrap up whatever they've written. So it changes just a little bit. And then 2nd grade, now the bolded part shows you a change. Your child will use the illustrations and the details in a text to describe key ideas. So now they're looking to, kind of drill down a little bit into whatever they're looking at, and they're noting all the pictures and some of those details in order to come up with an answer. And the children will provide a concluding statement. So we've moved on a little bit from sense of closure to a sentence that wraps it up. In 3rd grade, your child will write about topics and text and introduce the topic or text. And here's where it gets a little more involved. Supporting their point of view with reasons. using linking words and phrases to connect ideas. And by that, they just mean what sometimes you'll hear children call them transition words, but just words that will tell them like another reason that I believe this, or additionally, I feel that, or, just words that kind of link it together. And then fourth and fifth is pretty much the same, and that your child will write about topics in text, introducing that topic or text clearly, and then they'll have a really obvious organizational structure in which, though they start grouping their ideas, you'll start seeing paragraphing and support that point of view with reason. So they're going to go back in and really develop those paragraphs. And then sixth grade, your child will write to examine topics and convey ideas, concepts, and information through selection, organization, and analysis. So they're just really, it's a kind of just, it's heightened a little bit. They're going to be looking at things and citing their evidence, quoting information from the source and recording that as a point of evidence, summarizing, that type of the text as a point of being able to have a convincing piece of evidence. So again, though, the pie has kind of stayed the same. It's really those three kinds of writing. And so that's what we have for sixth grade. And I know what this all really boils down to is, okay, it's going to look a little different, but what can I do to help my child with literacy? Really, that hasn't changed. Even though the face of writing has changed somewhat, we're moving away from just writing about things, like how I feel, to responding to passages. It's still, you can ask your child specific questions about what they read when they're reading it. They, ask them, like, oh, well, how do you know that character felt that way? And then they can tell you, because a lot of those things are not right there. They're inferred. And that's a great opportunity for them to go, oh, well, in the picture, he's smiling and, noticing things like that. So encourage children to read, then write, and speak about nonfiction texts, such as newspapers, magazines, and biographies. We're really looking a lot more at nonfiction. Certainly, literary pieces are very important, but we're also looking at nonfiction as well. And to be able to discuss it is a huge piece of the Common Core standards. Encourage children to research topics of interest. Kids are really getting good on they can go into, find things. I know that my own grandchildren ask me a question. I can't tell you how many times I go, let's Google it. Let's go find out what we can about that interest. And they just love finding out more information. Have your child follow step-by-step instructions or a set of directions in order to accomplish a task, such as building a sandcastle or operating a game, just so that they realize that sequence of steps and how clearly they have to be written in order to follow them, which probably we wish we all could follow some of those steps that we see. So anyway, I know that we're looking at the state, and I know maybe Nancy might be talking a little bit about the fact that we're rebranding the name of Common Core Standards for Florida. Right now, it looks like they may be called the Language Arts Florida Standards. So if you don't be confused by the name change, it just appears that our standards are going through a rebranding, but they're still what we know, and you can still find those standards on that website.
Would you put those shifts up for me?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Good morning. Diana assured me if I was untethered, I would still be okay as long as I didn't go crazy with the mic. So I'm not going to go crazy with the mic. My name is Nancy Gray. I'm the secondary language arts and writing resource teacher. And you should have in front of you, I'm not sure how it was packaged or what color it is. It's white, okay. You should have a white sheet that has 3 different documents, all starting with Parents' Guide to Student Success. Parents' Guide to Student Success. So if you would pull those out, we're going to refer to those. Teresa started out talking about these shifts that are required not just by English teachers, not just by language arts teachers, but by really all teachers across the curriculum with our new standards. And one of the questions that has been raised about the new standards is, well, why do we need new standards? I went to high school in Brevard County. I have a good job. We're successful. So why these new standards? And I want to talk about that for just a minute. Because if you notice that second shift that Teresa referred to, reading, writing, and speaking grounded in evidence. Previously, writing really was an entity unto itself. Now, reading and writing are intermingled. They are together. You cannot have writing without reading. So whatever assessment comes down is really going to be a reading test as well as a writing test. So the two are connected. And previously with our standards, they started with kindergarten. And they said, okay, here's what a kindergartner should be reading. Okay, we'll make our list. And then they said, okay, well, we'll increase the rigor a little bit. Here's what first graders should be reading. And then they built to second grade, third grade, fourth grade, all the way to 12th grade. But the problem was there was a gap between the complexity of the text that 12th graders were reading and what they were required to read when they got to college. Does that make sense? So that's why we had new standards. One of the reasons why we had new standards. So with the new standards, what they said, okay, here's what a 12th grader should be reading in order to be ready to go to college or career. And then they backed up. Okay, if this is what 12th graders should be reading, then this is what 11th graders now need to be reading. 10th graders, 11th graders, all the way back down to kindergarten. Does that make sense? So consequently, the level of complexity in the different text has increased. And consequently, the degree of writing has increased as well. So that's one of the reasons why we have new standards. So take just a minute. I'm looking at the one that says high school English. You have one that says 7th grade and 8th grade, because again, my perspective is secondary, middle and high school. If you notice on the sheet, there's the section that says, why are academic standards important? Are they important? And you're going to read that later. How can I help my child? Again, as Ms. Moore said earlier, we don't want you checking out at the secondary level. We don't want you to think, oh, they made it, it's good. I cannot engage anymore. We need you engaged, especially now. If you look at the next page, there is, in this lower half, a sample of the work your child will be doing to become ready for college and career. That's the buzzword now. College. How many of you have heard that? College and career ready. Is that something that you've heard before? Because that's really our goal. Whether they choose to go to college or whether they choose to enter a career after graduation from high school, we want them having those skills that they need. So I want you to take about 2 minutes and read just the section where it says a sample of the work your child will be doing to become ready for college and career. Okay, as you read it, I want you to look for what are some of those key skills students are going to need. You're looking for key skills, okay? So about 1.5 minutes now, and then we're going to talk about it. All right, as you notice people at your table are finishing, talk to your table for about 30 seconds about what you have noticed about these skills that students will need with these new standards. All right, I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds. All right, let's come back together. I realize that was fast. And you're definitely going to want to take this home and read it closer. But just call out to me and I'll repeat what you noticed. What are some of the things that you noticed as far as what are some of the skills in order to be college and career ready will our students need? Eye-to-eye contact. There's this whole speaking and listening aspect to the standards that we really haven't thought about before. What else? Communication skills, definitely. What else did you notice? Evaluating, analyzing, inferring. Those are all big words, aren't they? And they require a lot of in-depth thinking, processing, things that typically happen in the advanced placement courses. If you are a parent of a high schooler and they're in those advanced placement courses, you see that happening. Well, now, those same kind of things are going to be happening in the lower levels. Not at the same degree, and definitely building in slowly, as Teresa said, what they need so that they are prepared. Anything else that you noticed? This is different, right? How many of you thought this is different from maybe even what your own education might have been like? I see a lot of heads nodding. So it's going to be hard. I'm not going to lie to you. This is not an easy shift. These are not easy transitions. However, we all know this. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it, right? So this is worth it. This is worth it for our students because I don't want to be the one to say to one of your children, well, you don't get to be college and career ready. Do you want me saying that to your child? No. So as we make these transitions, as there are some growing pains, we need your partnership because you are the key to the success of your children and maybe even your children's children. So I am on email. I'm sure if you have more questions that you would like to elaborate on later, but please feel free to dialogue with those of us at the district, with your teachers, with those administrators at your school. This is a journey that is worth taking, and we thank you in advance for your help in making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies. That curriculum piece is very, very important. That's kind of that informational stuff that sometimes isn't as exciting, but you understanding that curriculum piece allows you to interact with the kids in a way that will enhance what the teachers are already doing in school. So it's very, very important. I'd like to welcome Lane Keith, who's going to speak to you. The name has changed a little. It's Brevard Save Our Students, but the contact information is the same.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here with you today. My name is Lane Keith. I am also a parent within Brevard Public Schools. We have 2 children in the elementary school level, and I have had the privilege of working with many of our parent leaders over the years. I'm seeing some very friendly and familiar faces as we are working together to ensure adequate funding for our public schools. So today I'm here to talk to you and thank you to all of our Brevard parent leaders as you engage in a conversation about the upcoming half-cent sales tax initiative. This is something that our community will be voting upon in November of 2014. You may have already been engaging with area leaders, district leadership, principals. We've had our associate superintendents coming out into the school communities and giving presentations and maybe seeing some dizzyingly array of slides and presentations and what have you. So what we wanted to do today is introduce our coalition. We are comprised of parents, grandparents, community members, aunts, uncles, small business owners, volunteers, and most of all, you. I'm here today to talk with you about the ways that you can each become involved and give a little background and 101 about the budget. So when we think about why is this an important effort, or why is this half-cent sales tax initiative being presented to our school community, we know that monies that come into our school communities or our own district, for example, is divided into, we're going to make it very simple, capital money and operating money. The capital money are what you see, the school bus, the school building. These are the buildings and the buses, okay? When you think of the operating, this is what comprises about 85% our staff, our members, our teachers, our educators, and we have programs and supplies. So we see an opportunity for our children to benefit directly in the sense that we have one-on-one education. We have these amazing examples of before and after school programs for academic support. We have activities during the day where our children are engaging in these higher level curriculum programs as they prepare for the Common Core. Our money matters, and I think that is one of the resounding topics that has come up consistently in the early weeks and months of this campaign forming. The campaign for the half-cent sales tax was in fact launched 2 years ago. We know that our school community, our neighbors, our families actually did not approve, by 8,000 votes did not approve that measure in 2012. And one of the resounding facts that parents, community leaders, small business owners, people who are comprised of this leadership campaign or this initiative have said, we get the impression that parents didn't know the impact. And I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. If someone had said to me, this was going to be the result, maybe I would have voted differently. And this is an area that we feel that parent leaders can go out and champion this message and say things like, did you know that your half-cent sales tax would help fund this program? Oh, I didn't know that that was at risk, or I didn't know there was a potential for losing that. And we know as moms, as dads, as grandparents, that how our money is spent and how it is managed is one of the most critical teaching skills that we can give to our own children and what we expect our children to be receiving from a stellar quality education as in Brevard Public Schools. So where does all this money come from anyway? Local revenue for school support is derived almost entirely from property taxes. One of the very first questions that comes up is, well, why do we have to give more? Why do we have to give a half-cent sales tax? Why do we have to pay 6.5%? Doing research in preparation for becoming involved with this campaign, we're one of about, I believe it's 14 counties in the state of Florida who don't actually have a money source directly allocated to education through the sales tax. And an example that's going around in our community right now through some of our district leadership team members is that when people, and we, Brevard County residents, travel to Orlando, okay, the money that you and I pay to go over those tolls, and we all have our sun passes or we throw the money in the basket, that money is actually supporting our public schools in Orange County. So I say, terrific. I'm glad that when I drive into the airport or I go pick up a family member who's coming down to visit Disney World or something like that, that I'm contributing to the Orange County public students. Now, what can we say to family members who are coming to enjoy our pristine beaches or our Kennedy Space Center or our parks and recreation departments? Well, by them, our neighbors, our friends from the north coming down to enjoy our community, we have found that it is estimated that 40% of the monies collected from tourism in our neighborhood, in our community, will actually be generated for that half-cent sales tax too. So it really does a wonderful job of our vote yes on this half-cent sales tax initiative will certainly benefit our entire community. What can we do? The number one important task that we have as moms, as dads, as community leaders is to register to vote. We cannot underemphasize this important concept. Families who are out voting are making a difference. When I heard the word 8,000 votes is what the last time in 2012 the measure did not pass by, that number was staggering. When we think of 72,000 children who are enrolled in our schools, and we reach out and we say, okay, well, give or take, that's one mom or dad, or maybe one or mom or grandparent or aunt, for example, the impact that we can have just from within our own school community is very, very powerful. So we're asking families to please register to vote. Know your school board member. Can you raise your hand and identify from your seat right now who is your school board member? Does everybody have their hand going up? Wonderful, look at those heads shaking. Awesome. So as you look across this board and you say, oh, I live in the Merritt Island area, Dr. Murray is who represents me. She is who represents my vote for the future of our public school program. And if I, as a concerned community member, concerned parent, have a question or a concern that my immediate principal couldn't address for me, I want to go to my voting board member, such as Dr. Murray, and say, these are my concerns. This is what's affecting my school community. So creating awareness. How are students learning and developing in your school? What is important to your child? And most importantly, what is important to you, a voting member of our school community? So how can I help? You have had the opportunity to hear from your principal, your assistant principal. Your principal or assistant principal has invited in a academic leadership team member. It may be your area superintendent. It may have been a curriculum or of instruction specialist or superintendent. And what we're asking is for you to attend those parent leadership information meetings, the ones that Ms. Moore spoke about just a little bit ago. When someone says, yep, I'm going to the football game, yep, I'm going to the baseball game, absolutely, I'm going to be presenting at my son's science fair project when he goes to advance to regionals, for example. But when you're coming out to inform yourself about how this money is being spent and how this money can be saved, you're educating yourself for the betterment and for the future of our Brevard Public School students. We know when our parents who have 2- and 3-year-old children who haven't even entered into the equation of kindergarten because they're so enriched and so involved with the little happenings of the happenings of their little ones. We know that in 10 years, though, how old will their children be? Middle school preparation, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, when we're talking about years from now. So what we want families to do today is to please recruit 2 parent leaders from every elementary school, middle school, and high school to become involved with our initiative to educate and share the message about this half-cent sales tax. We would like you to tell a neighbor and a friend about the half-cent sales tax initiative. We would like you to consider placing a yard sign in your yard or hang door hangers in your neighborhood. And most of all, we're asking that you please vote on November 4th, 2014. At this time, I invite you to take a look at this slide. This has my name, Lane Keith, as well as Sandy Demon, 2 community volunteers. That's exactly what we are. We're community volunteers who would like you to write to us and include in your email the name, phone number, and email address of your 2 parent leaders. These could be you and the friend you brought with you today. These could be your biggest cheerleaders and champions of change who couldn't make it today because they're committed to their work career today, but you were able to take the morning off to be here. These could be grandparents who said, you know, I'm not working right now, I'm retired, and I would be very glad to go talk to my neighbors or my church members or families in the community who may not have heard about the half-cent sales tax initiative. We're also going to be kicking off a Facebook campaign as well as a website, so that's going to be coming soon. And so we're going to be reaching out to other family members in our community too who say, that's my expertise. I only look good on here because PowerPoint did all of this. I'm not an expert with technology, but I'm able to say, I can have my 11-year-old who can create all of these technology programs because of his experience in the technology in our schools to present these types of forms like this. And we thank you most of all for your passion and your dedication to the education system in Brevard County. I love looking around the room and seeing all the engaged parents, grandparents, guardians, family members who say it's important enough to me for my child's future to be engaged with public education, and I thank you, and I'm glad to be amongst each of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just like to point out that Miss Lane Keith used to be sitting right out there where you are, and now I'm so excited to have her in charge of such an important thing, fighting for our students. As a parent, it means a lot. Thank you. I'm going to introduce now Michelle Irwin, who is going to come speak to you. I know it's a familiar face, and while she's speaking, I'm going to pass out a sign-up sheet. So you're welcome to email her the information she requested, but if you're ready to sign up now, I have some sheets that you can pass around, and we will collect after. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And as a follow-up to some of that, Lane and Carrie over here are on the steering committee for this organization, and they're really working hard on the one side, but also I wanted to bring to your attention that we are developing things for you to use for an informational campaign. So a lot of times people, how many of you had somebody say to you, oh, what's capital funding mean? Or I don't understand the difference between capital or operational. Anybody? Okay, I've had a lot of people. What's a mill? I don't understand how a mill works and all of that good stuff. So my department is working, and probably over the next 5 to 6 weeks, we will have developed several little videos that you can use. It's going to be on our website. We'll have some brochures and things like that you can share with people that you know. So probably, maybe not the next, I don't know, maybe the next parent leadership team meeting, I'll be able to come and share some of that with you as a resource. But just so you know, we as the school district are also doing an informational campaign, and we will be, I'm more than happy to come out, and if you have a group that's looking for someone to speak at it, if you're not quite as comfortable with the data and the information, I just did a PTO yesterday, and I'd be more than happy to come out. So just email me and invite me and tell me what you're looking for, and I will be very, very pleased to come out and do that. We are slowing down just a little bit. I mean, we're not trying to get out there too fast because we do have several months ahead of us. So in order to avoid election fatigue, we are going to kind of gear it up near late spring and start really getting that information out for you, okay? Another thing I want to share with you today, and I don't want to take this down because I know that you guys are writing all of this down, but how many of you have seen your school's new website? School new website. Okay, good. We also launched today the district website as part of phase 1 of the district rollout. So that is up and rolling today. We're ironing out some of the little blips that happen along the way, but I say that as phase 1 because it is the initial web launch. Really, many of our departments here are so big that they could have their own website. They actually do have their own websites as standalone, and they're linked in essence to our website. So throughout the next several months, we will now start beginning phase 2, which will be to roll out the departments into our Edline account versus some of the SharePoints that we've been using. So you may go into secondary education and say, wow, that doesn't exactly look like, the front page, but that's because we still have to do now those department rollouts. But we're really excited about that. I want to share with you a couple unique features about this. Number one, there's a language conversion tool on this, which is really great because we do have people that English is not their native language, and we haven't been able to reach out to them because of that. So all they have to do is hit their language at the top, language conversion, and they can see all of this information in their native language. So we're excited about that. Number two, we have the mobile view that comes with this. So now if you pull it up, if you pull it all up, you'll on your iPhone like this, you will see a mobile view. What I'm really excited about is yesterday I submitted all of the data that I needed to Blackboard Engage, who's the contractor on this project, for our mobile app development. So we will have a mobile app for the district, as well as each school will have its own mobile app. And we are piloting, we're about ready to launch a new portion. How many of you have gotten those center voice messages? Yeah, we all have, right? How many of you would have preferred it to have been a text message or an email? Okay, well, we heard, and we are going to be rolling out as a pilot for the rest of this year what's called Blackboard Connect, and it goes through our website and our Edline and everything to, so you as a parent can go in and kind of set up your preferences and how you want to be communicated with, and we can get those through text, email, and voice. So for people like me, I just had a text message come through here from one of my staff members. I live by text messaging because I'm often in meetings, and so I can't take phone calls. So I love it when someone sends me a quick text, and I get the information I need, and I can move on, and if I need to get up and excuse myself, I can. So we're really excited about where we're going with our digital presence out in the school district, and we'll be showing you more and more as we come available. Now I'm moving on to my next one. How many of you attended a dialogue day? Dialogue day. Again, thank you for your participation. I have one of my coalition members sitting in the back. We had our first Community Action Coalition meeting this last week, and we had about 30 people there. Who decided that, yes, I want to be involved in working on some solutions to some of the gaps that we have as a school district. And so we will be hosting, we have decided as a group to move forward. We're going to start developing a leadership team as far as coalition and set some goals for that. And so at this point, I'm inviting anybody who is interested in serving on a coalition to see me or to email me. Just go ahead and drop me an email saying, yes, I would like to be involved. I'm going to be sending out a survey to coalition members to kind of narrow down our focus a little bit. And we meet in the evenings, not night, but we've been trying to meet at like 5:30 to 7, so that if you work, you can get off of work and get to the meeting and get out and still have, maybe a later dinner with your family. That was another thing that came out of our dialogue days, is that parents who work have a hard time getting involved because we hold so much during the school day. So if you are interested, it's a dynamic group. They have a lot of great ideas. If you are a go-getter who likes to, roll up your sleeves and attack an issue, this is the place for you. So see me if you're interested. And then the last thing that I wanted to share with you, leading up to Dr. Bingley coming in, is we have been working diligently to develop a budget recovery and reductions list based on a lot of the feedback we've received from our community, that they want to know what's at stake, whether we get more money in or we have to cut because we've had a reduction in our funding. And so we have developed the initial list. We presented it to our board members, and now we're bringing it out to the community to get some feedback. So you might want to write these dates down. On the 13th, we'll be holding a community meeting. All of this is on our website too, so if you don't want to write it down, that's cool. But we'll be having that at Bayside High School, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. On the 17th at Vieira High School, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And the 27th at Astronaut High School, what time? 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So we encourage you to come out and share your ideas and help us finalize that particular list. So unless I have any questions from the audience, happy Friday. Oh, yes. Mike. Just because we record these, Is it turned on? There comes Logan.
Yes, I'm sort of a thinker. I'm more of a philosopher of education, and I just read this book. It's called The Second Machine Age, and it caused me to think a lot about the future that we're going to be preparing our children for, especially if you consider the impact of globalization and technology, which is, I mean, it may sound an abstract reality, but I really think it's something absolutely real. And I mean, it's going to be displacing people from jobs and whatnot. So, I mean, considering that technology is changing so very quickly, and we're at a trajectory up like this, my question is, how can we develop some type of process innovation that is going to allow us to be agile and move very quickly with a very unpredictable world? I mean, I know that's real reflective, but I think it's spot on where this district needs to be if it wants to be the leader in the nation. And I think we should set our standard that high, because even if we make it halfway, we'll be much better. I mean, frankly, if these kids do not have the technology skills, what I understand is, like if automation is actually replacing jobs at such a rapid pace, then, well, what type of skills are they going to have? They need to be more creative and be better design thinkers.
Well, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Bingley because that's more a question for him.
What I'm thinking is,
I'm glad I'm ready to answer it.
and I'm a problem person. I mean, I'm real positive, you know, but I think like, okay, let's be negative here. You know, let's think about how bad things are, because if we're positive all the time, we're not going to see like what we need to fix.
Yeah, I've shared this with our teachers and actually with student leaders. And I went to the EDC Industry Council that represents businesses, as we're supposed to be preparing young people for not only college but career readiness into the future. And I think it was 1990, the 15% of the workforce was administration. 13 was administrative support. Basically a third of the workforce that was all set up to tell the other 2/3 what to do.
And I think they call that the industrial
right, but it's gone. By
Exactly.
2006, those percentages were 5% and 3%. Why? Because
I'm sorry, my son Omar, he was the school of my daughter's school is different than the son Omar that I have. I mean, it's changed that rapidly. And I have pictures of him sitting 3 years old Googling stuff, and he's teaching himself how to read, you know. And
my answer, it goes way beyond technology. And we built into our strategic plan that we need to help students acquire 21st century skills. Some of that is technology. Some of it is to be able to think and problem solve. Some of it is to be able to communicate creatively with people around you, or use the technology to do so with people around the world and solve problems. I think I'm getting to your question.
I think, well, what I want to say is that, like, having a more horizontal type of discussion, it would create a different culture for us. Instead of you just talking at us, we need to be like,
you mean on this,
arguing back and forth, you know, about like, because there's so many little things that we can all latch on to help improve the system.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just come from one place, it comes from everywhere.
I'm going to let them work. I mean, that's a big part of what Michelle is trying to do in all of our community committees and all of our, but I want to, let me speak to the issue that relates to schooling for children in that regard. And then I'm going to let Michelle deal with how do we get stakeholders to help Brevard Public Schools be as productive and meaningful as we can be.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I would love to. Thank you.
But I guess I want you to know. I shared excerpts from a book with every leader in our organization called "That Used to Be Us," and the point was that in that was that a military leader who a decade ran a whole theater in Iraq. He went and visited a captain at an outpost in Afghanistan. He's 24 years old, and had at his disposal more information than this general had a decade earlier, running a whole theater, and could call in literally millions of dollars of assets unquestioned. But he has to use that information to make the right decision.
It's like we're human sensors for you.
But it comes down because layers of middle management have been stripped away.
Yes.
In every occupation, and this is what the EDC Industry Council, absolutely, you're doing the right thing. Kids have to have that ability to think, problem solve, communicate. Yes, we need employees who can calculate mathematics and use the English language, but we can't find people who have these skill sets. Middle managers at the Marriott or whatever, entry-level people. Corporate America used to say you had to call up to the middle manager and solve a problem. The middle manager's gone. What you now have is a budget, and you solve it right there. And every month we're going to examine, did you do that well? Because if you're not using that money and problems go unsolved, that's a problem. If you got too many problems, that's a problem too. The point being that we understand, in answer to your question as it relates to our kids, we're working very hard to try to create an environment where they are thinking creatively, they're solving problems, they're communicating, they're using technology in powerful ways. We understand that is what we need to do to prepare them. Now, as it relates to using this venue to help Brevard Public Schools continue to be agile and meet needs of the community, that's we want to do that. I think, is that Michelle? Is that?
I mean, I realize that there's lots of budget issues that affect us buying the tools that we need.
Yes.
And I'm out there, and anything that I can do to help raise money or spread the word about the tax initiative, it's absolutely important. But like I said, that quick adjustment is, in an unpredictable world, is key, I think.
Well, we welcome your participation on the coalition, because I know one of the things they talked about was doing some fundraising for that's a possibility, maybe doing some fundraising for school initiatives. So thank you very much, and let's get your contact information. Okay.
And in a minute, I'm going to open the floor to you. I will tell you this. I was going to present. I am actually going to virtually every school in our district. And I am presenting some information that relates to our set of circumstances, that relates to our capital budget and our operating budget, because quite frankly, we have some teachers that didn't understand, all of the where we are, why we are where we are, and those are going well. I'll present that next time to you. But the bottom line is I end up sharing with our teachers, we all need to understand this, because I don't want anyone within our organization to not understand what's at stake and what the ramifications are. Okay, so I'll leave that at that, and I'll present that next time to you. I will tell you, let me give you one. We've talked a lot about some of the good things that our kids accomplished last year. I'll add one that since the last time we met, you might have seen it. Not sure you did, because it kind of got buried on the second page of the Florida Today. I didn't tell you about our graduation rate last time I was here, did I? No, it came in since then. We were once again in the top 5. We were 5th in the state in our graduation rate. But more than that, we are 5th in the state for African American children. We are 3rd in the state for Hispanic children. The gap for graduation for our Hispanic children has almost completely closed. It's like 1.5 percentage points behind white students. gap for African American kids has dramatically closed and is half of what exists in the state of Florida. And by the way, our kids need to earn 2 more credits than most of the rest of the state, including some science and so forth. Just to put it in perspective, St. John's County, which is the lowest free and reduced lunch, while ours has gone up to almost 50, theirs actually went down in the last 5 years. So they have the lowest free and reduced lunch in all of Florida. Their African-American children last year graduated at a 69% clip. In Brevard, it's over 80. And when I say our graduation rate was 87%, but you need to understand that's the federal graduation rate. It's the most stringent. For instance, if a student graduates in the summer, they are called a dropout. Now, whether that makes sense to you or not, that's the way the rules are. It's a cohort graduation. Did you start in 9th grade and did you graduate in 12th grade? And it doesn't matter that it took you the summer to get your diploma. You are calculated in the didn't graduate percentage. The average person would see that. So that 87.4, I think, is where we were, is a pretty powerful graduation rate for Brevard Public Schools. In fact, there's only one county, there's only one school district in the state of Florida that's been in the top 5 in graduation rate for the last 6 years, and your children attend it. Just so you know. Yeah. Yay. And I've shared with you last year, you know, the AP, the industry certification, you know, we really, for all the trials and tribulations, I want you to know that we're on mission and that, that there were good things that happened for kids. I will tell you, some of you last time kind of cornered me as it related to the information related to the sales tax, because not only am I out there now making sure our employees, every employee, understands what's at stake. There were some of you who were a little discouraged, let's call it angry, that other parents who they knew got 5 center voices, right, saying, hey, can you come to the school right in the neighborhood and get information related to the surtax last time? And they didn't do that. And then after the fact said, well, who knew that? And they basically, one of you in here said to me, hold us hostage. That's what one of you said. Who was? No, I won't make you raise your hand. But what they meant by that was that, look, you may not be able to require us to come to the school to understand what's going on, us being parents globally. But when we gather at the school, hold us hostage and give everybody the information they need. We took that to heart. Many of you probably saw our 3-minute video before the winter concerts, right? And just understand, I mean, we have great programs for children, and some of them are potentially in jeopardy. And I don't want to know that to be so and not tell you. See, I can't win. When somebody didn't know, they said, you didn't tell us. When I tell you, they say you're threatening and bullying. I can't win, and that's okay. What I'm holding my hat, in Mel High the other day, a few weeks ago, we have the only high school in America that is a location for FIRST Robotics to have a live feed. What's this year's game? And you pick up your kits in FIRST Robotics, right? And I had a gym full of people. Some of them came from Jacksonville to get that, but our schools get it at Mel High because we have it there. So these are people who are desperately committed to FIRST Robotics, just like we are. But I had to tell them, if we're not successful in the surtax, we cannot continue to afford to support FIRST Robotics as we have. We'll still pay the coach and everything else, but we can't keep paying the entry fees and all the things. I mean, it's $100,000. And so I don't want to know that and not tell you. If you were at our King Center for our all-county chorus, all-county band, or at Satellite High for all county strings. I had to tell 4,000 people that, you know, these are the things that might become a distant memory, and I don't want to know that and not tell you. And that's been my approach for that. So we'll continue to do some of those things, and I mean registration and everything else. And like I told the group that told me, hold us hostage, I said, okay, but some people are not going to like that, and some people don't. I mean, that's a fact. And they acknowledged, yeah, I know you're going to get some calls, and we did. But I'd rather not be accused of not letting you know that these things that make us very great are what's at stake. So I'll tell you, did we share with you that we had some of the most powerful players at Mel High in November? Business folks, as we, I don't think we did we? Okay. Just so you know, in November, we had about 40-some of the most influential private sector individuals in Brevard. And when I say that, cabinet-level people from Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Harris, you know, all of our major employees. We had some CEOs of smaller businesses. We had all the chamber presidents. We had the Economic Development Commission person, Linda Weatherman. We had the association presidents for real estate, restaurant and lodging and everything. And we really kind of walked through, this is where we are as it relates to particularly our capital budget. And see, they understood. When they saw the data, they said, that's unsustainable. Because it is. And I'm going to show you that next week to make sure you, just like our teachers, understand it very clearly. But the bottom line, then they have offered in many cases to help us as it relates to our informing prospect, and they did last time. The chambers and some other businesses sent out a lot of our information, and this is what I tell our teachers. Because these meetings that I'm having with our schools, they're not optional. And I tell them this, I had more people at Lockheed Martin last year, by a lot, than I had in our own schools. And that's unacceptable. We can't have that. So, but I want you to know that we've done that to try to gain a lot of that support moving forward, and we're getting that behind the scenes. And we're really getting it from real estate because they understand. This is not only a community quality of life issue. This is a property value issue. And economic development will tell you that this is an economic development issue. Because guess what? And I think I may have said this before, but I'll say it again. I've had to go out and meet with folks that are looking to relocate a business. And if they're talking to me, it's because Brevard is a finalist. You remember, you guys saw Northrop Grumman's closing a thing in Bethpage, New York, coming down here. I had a team of people over at Northrop Grumman, and we sat for 2 hours in a teleconference with parents from Bethpage, New York. 2 hours plus. They want to know. And I'm going to tell you, when I meet with business leaders in that way for the Economic Development Commission, they'll listen to FCAT kind of politely. But what makes a difference is when I can tell them the opportunities that exist for our kids in music and fine arts, when I tell them we have science research programs that are second to none in the state, when I tell right now our kids are at the mall right now presenting their original research to people of science, and for the last 3 years, we've had a third of the first place awards in the state science and engineering fair. A third. There's 67 school districts. Because we're still supporting science research in a very powerful way. And it doesn't happen in other places. So my point is, that's what they find meaningful. It really is. Because a lot of them, you think, well, what they want to know is there a educated workforce, right? And that's about FCAT, maybe. Kind of, not really. But And that's a little bit of it, but I'm going to tell you more of it is they look me in the eye and they say, I'm going to move 350 employees down here. And I got to be able to tell them that opportunities exist for their kids. I had one CEO that said this to me once. My wife told me to ask this. So you can say all you want about educated workforce, but we were down to 2 kids at that point, and they were his. One of them had a passion in the arts, and one of them had a passion in science. Guess what? We're good. We're good. And my point is those things that make us great. We don't have to do them. That's kind of where we are. Okay? And so we do have people, I think, that understand that. Some folks in the community that have voice. We just need everyone to kind of understand. That's really what's at stake. So having said that, come on up to the microphone. As usual, I'll answer questions as long as you have them. I know we got 5 minutes. You can leave. You won't hurt my feelings, but I'll answer questions for whoever has them. Oh, really? Okay, go ahead.
I'm actually a school counselor in Brevard County School System, and my question is: are the educators, the teachers in the building, as you're planning the campaign for the half-cent sales tax, at the school level, will we be given any kind of materials, information that we can hand to parents? There's that fine line of not being quote unquote political, but yet we want to give really good information.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Michelle speak to that in a minute, but you're right.
Okay.
But beyond that, when I come out to, one of the things that's happening from these meetings in schools, teachers are saying to me, okay, what do we got to do? And what can I do? And for instance, they say, I meet once a month with look, I'll talk to anybody. I talked to the Red Hat ladies a few weeks ago. I did. Yep. But all of you and all of our teachers are in homeowners associations and everything. And we say here, she's developing a cadre of tools. Maybe you don't want to say anything, but here's a 5-minute video. I can show that with my book club. I can show it with my whatever. And go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, as I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, for employees, they're in a little bit different situation than parents are. Employees, it's the rule of thumb is you can inform till your heart's content. You just can't tell people how to vote. So you can tell them our needs, you can tell them, you can share videos, presentations, all of that, because everything we're doing, that I'm doing from my end, is going to be informative and it's legal, okay? But as a citizen of the county, if you're having people over for dinner.
At your book club.
Yes.
Or your homeowner.
Wine tasting or something like that. You can also, like he said, we'll have several different videos, little explainer videos. We'll have his presentation that he's doing, we'll have an even simpler version of it that'll be automated. So all you have to do is press play, and someone will speak to them on your behalf. And then you can maybe answer some questions. So as employees, when you're not on work time, you can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. Mm-hmm. While you're working, you have to only inform.
Yeah. Okay.
I have come to several of these parent meetings, and I always enjoy hearing you speak so highly about our district. But as a former teacher in the district and as a parent with 4 children in our schools, I have seen a huge decrease in the morale of our teachers. And I want to know what this district is going to be doing facing forward. Mm-hmm. I hear wonderful things, and I feel very proud to be a part of this district, but I feel that our teachers are suffering, and they are carrying a camel on their back. And what are you guys going to do to help change that for them?
Yeah, we, it's interesting. I just met with the governor, with a cadre of superintendents. And I asked him, I said, right now we're in senior staff and we constantly ask, what can we take off our plates for principals so that the main thing can be the main thing? And then they ask, what can we take off the plates for teachers so that the main thing can be the main thing? We have a group of individuals right now working with elementary school teachers about, let's look at some of these assessments. Can we get rid of some of those? Can we, let's look at, we have them within our evaluation system. Let's keep it meaningful, but not have it be, that it takes 80 hours to do some things. And we're doing a lot of those things, absolutely. But I looked at the governor, and I said to him, I told him we were doing all those things, and the Senate chair of the Education Committee and the House chair of the Education Committee, and I looked him in the eye and I asked him, does anyone up here ever do that? Does anyone up here ever look back and say, gosh, in the last 3 years, we've thrown a lot at schools? And he didn't have a good answer other than the legislature comes up here to pass laws, and you better tell them to stop passing all these laws. I mean, okay, you tell them. You're the governor. I'm telling them right now. Some of that stuff is just rolling downhill, and we're catching all the rocks. We'll try to do what we can to control what we can. But I'm going to tell you, this is a national issue. It's interesting. People, sometimes the union comes to the podium and say, our teachers are going to go to Georgia. They're going to leave to go to Georgia. The NEA in Georgia just did a study in Georgia. 80,000 teachers said, you know what? We got to get out of Georgia. I mean, the morale is shot. At an all-time low. There's this national rhetoric that teachers went from... in public schools, went from good people, public servants that care, to the reason why our economy's in the toilet. And it happened like that. And we got to assess and fire our way to excellence. And some of those reformers, right, that are, we don't believe that. So we tried to have an evaluation system. We don't do that. There are counties right now that get the test results and then they automatically make it show a certain percentage of their teachers are needs improvement or unsatisfactory. We refuse to do that. So you're not wrong. All the things that are coming down, they end up going all the way down to the school level, and we'll try to control what we can. But it is an issue everywhere. I talk to superintendents, and just so you know, over the winter break, I pulled this data. North Carolina is a state that the school districts are required to provide to the legislature. How many teachers left your district for whatever reason? They retired, they moved to another district, they passed away, they got out of education, for any reason, right? The statewide data for North Carolina was 14.37, I think, 14%, higher than it's been. We capture that data here in Brevard, and last year it was 11%, 11 point some percent. And I'm going to tell you, I think Florida has a more problematic issue than North Carolina, and I will also tell you that we have an older teaching force than might be the average. So what I would suggest to you is that a higher percent of that 11% was probably from people retiring versus folks who said, I'm out of this. So we are trying to make, we're trying to look and say, hey, are these things costing us? It's not that we're burying our head in the sand. We want to know that we're trying to do what we can to preserve and keep the great people who ultimately get it done for our kids. And we'll keep doing that. We had teacher advisory groups right in this boardroom last week, right, Michelle? Brought them in and said elementary and secondary. And and this wasn't talk at them. This was, we got two big questions and we want you to wrestle with them and tell us. And the first one was time. How can we get you time? back to work with kids. And so we got, we're getting their input and doing everything we can to try to get that back for them. But there are certain things that we're required to do. Financial literacy, let's have another one. Just because you pass a law, and everybody's got to implement that out here. It is one more thing on top of the 20 more things that you legislated in the last 3 years. So, it is a problem throughout the state. I like to think that we're at least trying to address it and keep our people, as committed and as they are, and they are. You're not wrong. We understand it. We're trying to do the best we can to protect them from it the best we can. We really are. And we'll keep doing it. Anyone else? No? You sure? By the way, I'll say one other piece of data that I gave to the people that I forgot. I don't know if I told you this before, but we have 2.6% of the kids in Florida. But the last 3 years, we've had 5%, an average of over 5% of the all-state musicians. And they have to earn that. So when we say it's not only opportunity, it's that our kids are achieving in those veins. We got some Merit Island kids who are going to play for the state soccer championship this afternoon. So let's go, let's go Mustangs, and hopefully they'll win too. So.
Thank you all very much for coming. We really appreciate your time. Please remember to take back those materials and share them at your school, share with the PTOs, the SAC committees, and get those handouts in the binders. Thank you and have a great day. Oh, and a reminder, if you were here for the Parent Strategic Initiative meeting, please stay and come over in this area.
Good morning. Yes, if you're